JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. Monday, June 23rd, 317. Talk really quick about the market. Some names I'm looking at go from there. S&P is up 0.75%. Didn't seem like that, right? It's been a choppy day. The market's open slightly in the green, bounced around. It could have been anybody's guess what could have happened after the open. The Bears could have taken control, said, "Oh my gosh, World War III is going to happen." And not only that, we still have the tariff concerns, recession concerns, inflation concerns. There's so many different things you can throw out there that'd be a catalyst for downside that any kind of headline would rationalize the move, right? If the markets closed down today and there was no headlines around the what's going on in the Middle East, they would cite data or uneasiness ahead of Fed Chair Powell's testimonies tomorrow and Wednesday. But instead, we got kind of like, and war is horrible, right? I keep saying it, like, but at the same token, we're trading the market, so like, you got to have an open mind and take the emotion out of things, right? Uh, I know there's people who are very passionate about different things in the world, right? And sometimes I post stuff, and people will, voice their opinion, especially when, Tesla's the best example of emotions, right? If someone's bearish, hate Elon Musk, hate what he stands for or whatever, hate the company, hate all that stuff, and then they try and trade it. I'm like, how can you not have emotional bias play into that, right? It's just natural. Very hard to, unless you have a plan, you stick to it, or whatever. But even that, there's got to be some bias. Even if you say there isn't, same token, if you're uber bullish, you love him, you love everything about the company and what it's doing and its growth potential and the robo taxi now, right? Uh, how can you not have some bias there? So um, it's even with this market, it's tough to kind of like tune out some of the noise in the headlines. And of course, when there's war and missile attacks and things, I mean, people's lives are impacted. The people might lose their lives, get injured, maimed. There's, I mean, all these different things. So watching it today, and then everybody's waiting for the response from Iran, and then you start seeing the headlines. The market bounced 598 on a SPY after the open. Um, and then oil price kind of fluctuating a little bit. And then around 12 o'clock or so, you can start getting reports. Oh, Qatar's airspace is being closed. You're like, oh, Qatar's airspace being closed. I mean, that's pretty odd, right? Because pretty much that hasn't happened in some of these areas in the Middle East. They happen after attacks, right? So you're like, something's going on. Then you see missiles are being launched or whatever. So then it's like, I'm like, this is like deja vu all over again. So back in 2020, it was January, and Trump's previous term, they assassinated some general, right, from Iran, and you thought this was going to start this whole conflict, right? And I remember it's like, I don't know if it happened during the trading day or overnight. All of a sudden, a couple days later, Iran's launching missiles at U.S. bases, and you're like, this is going to escalate. And then it's almost like it was like just a show of, hey, we want to save face, but we don't want to escalate things. And then that was the last we heard of it. And then here it is. We have a kind of a similar scenario, and I'm watching. I'm like, this is all. This I wouldn't say it's scripted. It's not like it's a play. Of course, there are real missiles being launched. Who knows, if they don't get shot down or whatever. But it's like they were. Turns out there were. Qatar was given advance notice to some diplomats from the U.S. were given notice of this attack, and then, it's almost like, okay, if this is it, I mean, the region's getting de-risked. So we'll see how this all plays out. I post stuff on FinTwit, and you just get responses from people, and some of it maybe their bias. I don't know, but I'm just here to trade, right? And we've seen this before. Sometimes the best indicator of future performance is past performance, right? Look into history. History is a great lesson. And you sometimes history, you hope it doesn't repeat itself unless it's a positive thing, but this could be a positive, uh, like the blueprint of how this played out last time was the blueprint is hopefully it plays out this time with the U.S. and Iran. So I keep saying this, like, if Israel was able to pick apart Iran so quickly and just be able to hit whatever targets they want, like, how can Iran respond to the U.S.? Like, it's almost like, I wouldn't say comical, but I mean, I'm no military strategist. I don't have no boots in the ground. I don't watch all the shows, or not too much. A lot of, I read and all that stuff. So that's kind of what you see from the situation. I'm like, all right, but anyway, so that new reports came out, and then those missiles were getting launched. You see videos, and all of a sudden you look and oil's dropping. I'm like, why would oil drop? It's similar. It's the same way. Why would the Tel Aviv stock market be at all-time highs yesterday? Because I think it's de-risked, and people look at it and say, "Oh, these missiles are going to get shot down. There's going to be press come out later," and that's kind of what happened. So hopefully this is it. Maybe there might be another round. I don't know. Iran said they symbolically sent 6 missiles to match the amount of bombs that were dropped. I mean, come on, was this is this a show they're trying to put on? So the good thing, no loss of lives, no any of that stuff, and hopefully it just de-escalates. There's some talks, and then we can kind of move on, and then maybe that's a good thing for the global economy, the world, and then hopefully other geopolitical situations get worked out. All right, so that's kind of the overall market. I don't like to make jokes about the market, but who remembers back in the day, COVID, and of course living in the Northeast, and maybe it rings a little more true for me than some others. But seeing Chris Christie after they declare all the beaches. You can't get in. They're public spaces, public parks, but you can't get in because of COVID. And there's Chris Christie. Someone takes a video of a picture of him on the beach in New Jersey. So I just thought it was funny. You look at the air traffic, and anyway, hopefully things get back to normal. All right, so now that's kind of the overall markets here. Uh, it's not frustrating, but like watching the market's so easy to get feared into getting puts. Right, I almost at like 12:30 we start to roll. I'm like, it might make sense to get some SQQQ calls here, just because you don't know what's going to happen. But it's just like every instance of this has happened over the last couple of years. I wouldn't say it's been buy the dip opportunity. There's other instances where it continued to roll, but it's like just hold, and then boom, sure enough, we bounced. So I came close to getting some MasterCard puts, Visa puts. I was very close to getting those. And just I was trying to rationalize it, So uh, I figured that, wait for the reports, find out if there's casualties or whatever. And I think if it doesn't, then I'm like, maybe this is it. All right, so that's kind of the overall market. I still was watching the 595.24 to 604.25, 595.25. I think that's what it is. 595.25 to 604.25. That's still a nice range there. I think that's probably where we're going to be. I mean, we did dip under that at the noon hour, but we're back above that. So I think when we get over 604 this week, then you got to start looking at all-time highs. As crazy as that sounds, they say the longer the base, higher in space. Look at this channel we've had since the start of June on the SPY between 586 and where we are now. All right, so that's kind of overall markets. Individual names. So I added one position this morning, and that was PayPal. I was on the watch list this morning. If they have a stable coin, all these stable coin headlines, obviously there's meat to it because you saw Visa and MasterCard get pummeled. And then on the flip side, it's like you would think that names that have already been ahead of the curve, like a name like PayPal, which has their own stablecoin, would have rallied, and that it didn't rally. It was $75 last week, sold off all the way under $70, and then it had that news this morning, expanded partnership, and I just think it's the start of a move higher. So in lieu of trying to get some weekly strikes, I went and got the monthly Julys, and they're actually down a cent or two, despite the stock nearing highs of the session here right now. I'll wait and see how tomorrow does in regards to follow through, but you look at the 200-day moving average up there almost at $77. So I think that's a short-term target. I'm not saying it gets there this week, but wouldn't rule it out. And then if it does show strength tomorrow, I'll look to get some more strikes. But hopefully the Julys start to gain some premium as it rallies. So that's PayPal. And then Lemonade. So right at the open, it does what it typically does. It found pressure. And then thankfully, all the way down to $43. I'm like, it's getting close to 42.50. And then at 9:40, it's like someone hit the buy button and boom, all the way from 42.50 all the way up to nearly $47 by 10:30. So I'm riding free, able to lock some of my July 11th calls in for 100%, the July 18th for 100%, and I'll just hold the rest. And I would love to see a squeeze and move over $50 this week. I wouldn't rule it out tomorrow, maybe, but it's a volatile ride. So now, as opposed to being a little closer to itchy finger to sell because of volatility, I can be a little more have a little more leeway locking the rest in. So I'll probably use that 43 handle as kind of like the stop. Came down to $43 at 1 o'clock and then bounced. So really like this name, especially if it gets some momentum. Again, to me, I think it's a name that I think deserves a much higher valuation, but it's being held back. And once those folks either have to cover or they reduce their exposure, what have you, I think it really starts to take off. All right, so that's Lemonade. Then some other names still have the freebie Dell 130s. I would love to have seen it move over 120. It was 119.50 after the open. If it gets over 120 tomorrow, I'll add some more strikes, but still like that one. And then Roku, for some reason, even the overnight session, when the overnight session opened, Roku was down at $78. The stock closed at 80 and change on Friday. So I didn't really get it. And then it was trading up, and then boom, back down into under $80 into the afternoon. It's spiking a little bit here. So hopefully it gets in the green, still like the July strikes. I still think this trading substantially higher in the coming weeks. Other names, Serve, I still holding it. It was holding the 200-day moving average for a little bit, and then found some afternoon pressure. I'll be patient here, but at some point I'll add some more strikes. It was like, yeah, 12 o'clock. It was 1070, and boom, within a flash, broke under $10. So that's Serve. GameStop, still watching GameStop here too. I mean, it's at $23. At some point, that's going to gap fill. Uh, yeah, I'm trying to think of some of these other names. Oh, VKTX, right? So, uh, frustrating name. It had Amgen today announced disappointing data. That one's getting pummeled. That's on the heels of Pfizer's announcement they were stepping out of the GLP-1 space, or at least stopping their study. LOY had some decent oral data over the weekend, but even that, it's like all these names are stepping out, and then VKTX is trading near multi-month lows. Just uh, surprising, and so they'll have data at the end of July for well, could be any day, but it's going to be sometime in July or August where they'll have their oral data. So that's kind of like the next big catalyst. I'm surprised it's still down here. You have to think. I mean, I keep saying it. Some M&A chatter, but I'm trying to think of some of the other names I've been watching. I was looking at AVAV. I've almost got some of the 230s. It was trading up, almost back up 198 at about 1030, and then boom, that one just sold off ever since. Premiums are tough on that one, so I don't want to be in a spot where I have the calls and they have earnings, right? So uh, they report, I think, tomorrow. I have to double check. So maybe post earnings, or if I can find some lottos. I'm trying to think of some of the other names I've been watching here today. But I think that's it. Arista Networks up almost 7% here today. I don't get that. Oh, take a look at Circle again. I mean, it was like a 20-something percent implied move. And even if you got the calls, it's just tough. It's like so volatile. It was at 290, back under 250. Now it's back at 270 here. Just a tough one to trade. It's not a name that I normally uh, trade options on, because to me, I was saying on Friday, like that's a name that you you buy some calls and then sell. You buy the stock and then sell covered calls, uh, and then if it goes against you, you just you you get your shares taken away. That's it. I don't know. All right, folks, that's it. Let's have a great day. I'll be back rock and roll. And again, hopefully, peace, everything gets resolved, escalations kind of ratchet down, and we can move on to our next headwind. Gosh knows what that'll be. And again, tomorrow, you have Fitchair Powell speaking. I don't know if it's the Senate or House where he is. He'll have prepared remarks. Usually come out at 8:30, and that'll be the only prepared remarks. And then the last part of that is just politicians trying to sound important in front of Fed Chair Powell. All right, let's have a great day. We're rock and roll.